Yes, sir. Visible. Continue.
Okay. So let me know, sir, when I can start, sir. I'll start.
No, sir. Now you can start.
Okay. Good morning. Welcome back, guys. Uh, so we covered the pre-data pre-processing side. Just one minute. What is happening here? What is this nonsense here? Okay. So we covered the data pre-processing side, and now basically we'll cover the regression part, right? So in the regression, as I said, there are two types. One is a univariate regression and a multivariate regression, right? So we will cover an example of a univariate regression. We will show how the things work, and we'll go to the data pre-processing steps. We will go to evaluation, model training, and we'll go to model evaluation also. Okay. Now see how it works. Very interesting. I will just open the data set. Okay, so I will close this. And please don't. I mean, I'll be sending you this data set and Python scripts also, sir. I will send it to you so that you can pass it on to the participants. Okay, sir.
Okay, sir. Okay, sure.
So everything I'll give you along with the PPT. So now I'm going to regression. I'm going to simple linear regression, and I go to files, and I see something called simple linear regression.py. Okay. My data set is salary data.csv. This is my data set. Okay. So you have years of experience and salary. Very simple example. But for an understanding perspective, it is very, very important. Now you understand the flow. Okay. So now we know that the salary is the dependent variable. Okay. And the years of experience is the independent variable, right? We all know that, correct? Now what we will do is we are going to execute the data pre-processing steps. So first of all, what I will do, I will go here. I will first import the libraries. Okay. So let me import the libraries. Correct. I will import the data set. If I want to see my data set, I go to my variable explorer, and here is my data set. So yeah, I've got years of experience and salary, right? So this is the data which I'm getting from HR of a company. And as a data scientist, I need to basically come out with a model. Okay. Now I realize, obviously, based on this data, I can say that this has to be a regression model because my years of experience and salary are typically linear, right? So I will use a linear regression model in this case. So I will close this. I will also define what is my X independent variable and my dependent variable. So now if I see what is my dependent variable, independent variable, it is my years of experience. And what is my dependent variable is my age. Okay. Now, what are the various steps? Number one, pre-processing step, missing data. There is no missing data, so you don't have to do anything. Number two, data categorization. So what do we do for data categorization for this data? What do we use, one hot encoder or we use label encoder here? Hello. Can I get some answers from everybody, please? Where is that gone here? And am I audible, right? I think.
Yes, sir. You're audible.
Yeah. So can I get some? Yeah. I would request all of you to participate. Let it be a wrong answer. Doesn't matter. Please participate. So do I have to do data categorization? Yes or no?
No, it is not required, no, I think.
No.
Perfect. Yeah. So please, that's right. Because there is no text field, right?
Right.
So
Yes.
there is no text field here. So I don't have to do data categorization. Very nice. What about splitting of data?
Have to do.
Splitting of data is a must, whether you like it or not, right?
Yes.
You have to
Yes.
split the data. So I will split the data into training set and test set. So I have got total 30 records. Out of it, 10 records is test set, 20 records is training set, because my 1/3 is my test size. I've used 1/3 instead of 30% just for calculation, because it's 30 records, right? So easy for calculation perspective. What about feature scaling? Is feature scaling required? Do we require feature scaling or no?
Not sure, sir.
See, we have years of experience and year salary, right? Again, years of experience will have typical from 1 to 35, 40 years, right?
Yes.
While your salary will still have maybe can have a different scale, na? So you need to do feature scaling.
Okay.
I mean, years of experience is as good as age, right? So if age and salary are going to do feature scaling, years of experience also you have to do feature scaling, because they are in different scales. Now, in the case of linear regression, why I have commented the code, you see I've commented it's in green color, is because the linear regression algorithm itself takes care of feature scaling. So you don't have to do explicit coding here. You don't have to do explicit coding here, and that is why here you have seen that it is commented. Okay. So what I will do is, now my model is ready for training. So what I do, I go here. From here, I'm using the linear regression model algorithm. I'm giving X train and Y train, both independent and dependent variable, as an input for training. So I will select this. So my model is trained. Once my model is trained, as I told you during the workflow, I will feed the independent variable of the test data. This is my independent variable of the test data. This is my prediction function, and ypred is the predicted dependent variable of the test data. Ypred is the predicted value of the test data. So if I select this, how do I compare? So what do I, now ypred I will compare with what? Tell me, ypred I will compare with what? Ypred I will compare with what?
White train.
Why?
Train.
Why
Why?
train? Anybody else?
With the
Why?
actual values. With the actual values.
Yeah, but what is that? Why train? Why test? What?
Why test?
Why test? Perfect. Ma'am, why train? You have already trained the model, na? You cannot use that training for testing.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
So you will take X test. You will predict Y based on the learning the model has gone through. And then you will compare Y pred with Y test. Now, how will you compare? There are various ways of doing it. What I can do physically, I can go to Variable Explorer. I can select Y pred. And I can select Y test. So I can do a sort of a manual comparison between Y test, which is my actual test data, and Y pred, which is my predicted data coming out of the model. So this gives you a fair idea how far away is your predicted data from the actual data, right? While this is sort of a manual process and very tedious because of a various volume of records, it will not make sense. So the another way of doing it is using the matplotlib. Using the matplotlib, I will run this for the training set. See what I'm going to use the training set. See what is going to happen. This line, this is your salary. This is your age, or sorry, years of experience. This blue line is coming from the predicted line. It is coming from the model. The model is predicting for this age, this is the salary. For this age, this is the salary. This is the line, which is the predicted line coming out of the model. And these dots are the training data set, actual data set, actual training data. And if you see that there are some points away from this, there are some away from this, there are some away from this, and so on. So your data, this model, when it was trained, is okay. I mean, it has realistically give you a good sort of output, because there has not been any outliers. I mean, you have not got any data somewhere here, somewhere here, somewhere here. It has been pretty close to the predicted line, right? If there have been any outliers, then obviously your data pre-processing also must have been incorrect. Okay, since we have already taken care of outliers or any data which is out of range, as part of your data preparation phase, you will have a sort of a very clean data where you have trained the machine, right? Similar thing I will do with test data. So I will run this with test data. Now you see the test data is working very well. The predicted value, the model has predicted from the model, it has predicted pretty accurately as compared to the actual test data. See, if my actual test data red dots is very close to my predicted line. So this model is pretty good. Now, how do you measure the model efficiency? Obviously, you can do this using this verbally. You can see that it is a one of the preferred models for this particular set of data. Another thing which is used today for regression model, okay, let me just explain you this very important line. If you remember, this was the predicted line which I showed you, and this was the dots. This predicted line is y predicted. We generally denote it y caret, and yi is the actual. So your main aim is to reduce the gap between yi and y predict. Or I would say sum of yi and y predict the whole square should be minimum. This equation in machine learning algorithm, this is how the regression model works, is called ordinary least squares or cost function. The main aim of your model is to minimize the cost function or to minimize the ordinary least squares. Okay, that is the sum of yi minus y predict the whole square should be minimum. Once you have understood this, this is the equation to find out the efficiency of a regression model. The equation is r square equal to 1 minus sum of the square residual divided by the sum of the square total. What is sum of the square residual? Sum of yi minus y predict the whole square, which is the least squares, ordinary least squares, or it is also called the mean square error. There are various terms you can use. So if my model has to be efficient, my sum of yi minus y predict the whole square has to be minimum, or it has to be close to 0. If SS residual is close to 0, then 1 minus SS residual by S total will be close to 1. So my way to measure the efficiency of a regression model is what is using R square. And for the model to be most efficient, my R square has to be close to 1. Is this clear to all of you, what I said? Any questions here? Anybody has any questions?
No,
Sir,
no
could you kindly explain that random state equal to 0, this parameter, what is the function of that?
Random state of 0 is it uses an internal function to split how the data will be split between training and test set. So it uses an internal function, a random state. Maybe it will say maybe this 10 records will be training set, this 20 records will be test set. So it defines, so there is a random state 0, 42. It's an internal function where it will internally decide which out of 30 will be training set, which out of 30 will be test set, that way. So you can use different random states. So there are some parameter functions which are available.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Have you guys understood? See that for the main purpose of that model workflow was to tell you the the flow. And now if you want to bring that concept into this actual code, you'll now be able to really appreciate why we are doing this, right? So now after doing the data pre-processing data model, we have evaluated the model using the YPRED. Now we have also calculated the model efficiency. Now, how do I calculate the model efficiency? So what I will do, I showed you the function. I will open another file, simple linear regression model efficiency. Okay. Now what I've done here, it is the same thing. Only thing I've added one more library called R2Score class, which I'm importing. I will execute everything up to the end except for the last line. Okay. So this I've already done. So I'm just executing the same thing. Now this is where I calculate the R2 score. So my R2 score, where I'm taking Y-test and YPRED as my parameters, is 0.97, which is 97%. So anything above 90 or even 95% is supposed to be the recommended model to the client. Okay, so using the R square, I have calculated the model efficiency. Any questions on this? Don't worry, I'll be sending you this scripts. You can test it at your leisure time, but just understand the concept here. Okay, so now we have covered simple linear regression. Now let's try to cover multiple linear regression. Okay, multiple linear regression. Okay, now see what we are going to do. So I will close this. I will change the folder to multiple linear regression. So let me open multiple linear regression. And I will open a file called multiple regression.py. Where is it called? Yeah. Okay. Now let me open this file. This is my data file. So can anybody tell me which is your independent variable and which is your dependent variable?
Profit is a dependent.
Correct. Profit is my dependent variable because it depends. This is what I actually explained to you as an example before in the first half, where my profit is dependent on the R&D spend. Profit is dependent on the administration spend. Profit is based on the marketing spend. And obviously which state my company is in or located in, right? So my profit is an dependent variable and the others are the independent variables. And since this is profit is a continuous variable, this is a multiple regression data, right? Now, what I will do, I will do the same steps. I will import. Again, the concept is absolutely the same. I import my data sets. I import my libraries. I import the data set. I take X and Y. What is X? X is my 4 fields and Y is my profit. Come to data pre-processing. Okay. Now if I look at this file, assuming there is no missing data, there is no problem. What about data characterization? Is it required?
Yes, required.
Why?
Because state is there. State is a string.
Correct. Correct. So state is a text field. So you need to do data characterization to convert this into a binary. Now what I do is I again go back. This is where I use one hot encoder and this coder. I do this. Now if I go back and feed X, you see here, since there are 3 countries, and see the interesting part, the state which was the 4th field in the actual input file, when you do the data characterization, the dummy variables are moved to the left. The dummy variables starts with the dummy variable. That way I can put it. So instead of the country which was here, now it has come here, replaced, and you have replaced the country value by 3 dummy variables because there are 3 country values. And after that, you have the R&D spend, whatever the marketing spend, and the third is administration spend, whatever that, three independent variables, right? Okay. What about splitting? Yes, you have to do splitting anyways. So there is no mix here. So I'm talking of 80% test training set, and because test size is 0.2 means test set is 20% and training set is 80%. Is feature scaling required? Is feature scaling required for this data? Can I get some answers?
Participants respond, say yes or no.
Yes.
Why? If you say yes, I will ask why. If you say no, also I will ask why. So please have the why answer also, please. You're right, but why? You're right, but why?
Ranges are different.
Correct.
Different
My
range of ranges.
profit can be in different range. My marketing spend can be in different range. My administrative spend can be in different range, right? So wherever we are uncertain of the ranges or there could be different values, always you should do feature scaling. And as I said, since we're still using linear regression algorithm, we have commented the code because feature scaling is inbuilt in the algorithm itself. Okay. So I will again do the same thing. Again, the same thing. I will do the linear regression. Here, instead of one independent variable, I am feeding multiple independent variables. And I can do a prediction here. Okay. So similarly, what I done earlier, I can do a y-test, y-plate comparison either using my R-square, or I can do a comparison using the matplotlib, or I can do a manual visible sort of a thing where I can compare y-test and y-plate through my variable explorer. Okay. So the concept of multiple regression, we are using the same regression algorithm. Only difference is you have got multiple independent variables and a single. Now, have you guys gone through the statistical portion in the first 2 days? Have you covered p-value? Have you covered p-value in your mathematics foundation session?
Yes, sir.
You have covered p-value. So what is p-value? Anybody can explain?
It is covered in Pearson correlation. I think.
It is covered in what? Sorry?
The Pearson correlation. Correlation concept is covered.
Okay.
Correlation.
Fine. I will give an example how I'm giving. Yeah, sorry. Somebody was saying something. Sorry.
Yeah, continue.
Okay. So let me give you this example so that, okay, now one of the very important things that happens today is that as a CEO of a company, that we are having only 3 independent variables here. Imagine there are 50 variables which decide the profit of a company. So as a CEO of a company, I need to know which variable has the highest impact on my profit. Which variable has got the highest impact of the profit? And that is where you use a concept of a null and the alternate hypothesis. What happens is that there is something called a p-value. A p-value. Okay. P-value, when null hypothesis means that the variable has no impact on the dependent variable. Alternate hypothesis says that variable has impact on the dependent variable, which is the profit. Okay. Now, if there is a p-value which is there for every feature, okay, and that p-value, there is a method to do that. Once you calculate the p-value, there is something called a significant level, which is typically 0.05 or 5%. Okay, where 5% is the significant level. Okay, that means we are trying to achieve. That means 5% is the error rate, 95% is the accuracy rate. So what statistics says that if my p-value is greater than the significant level, which means null hypothesis is applicable. That means if my p-value is greater than the significant level, that particular variable has no impact on the profit. So I eliminate that particular variable. So this process is called backward elimination. So what I'm doing, if I've got 50 features, I go through all the 50 features, I calculate the p-value, I compare it with the significant level, I eliminate feature one at a time. I don't do all at a time. So I take 50 features, I calculate the p-value, taking the p-value which is the highest, which is more than 0.05, I eliminate that feature. Then I take the remaining 49, I recalculate the p-value, and again see which p-value is highest, greater than 0.05, eliminate. So I go on eliminating those features where the alternate hypothesis, the null hypothesis is applicable. That means the variable has no impact, and take that feature which has got the lowest p-value. That's where the alternate hypothesis will be valid. And this is where this p-value becomes very, very important when you're using a multiple regression and your problem statement is, how do I understand which of these variables is having the highest impact on my dependent variable? Did I make sense what I said? Any questions? Any questions from anybody, please?
Clear, sir.
So one question.
Sure, go ahead.
So can you please explain exactly like how will we eliminate, like if the p-value is greater?
Yeah, so suppose I got 3 variables here, A, B, C, okay? Let's say there are 5 features, okay? I calculate the p-value, this is 0.06, okay. So this is say 0.08, 0.04, 0.03, and 0.09. So if this be the case, I will take the p-value, which is the highest. So which is the highest? 0.09. And this is anyway more than 0.05, right? If it is more than 0.05, eliminate this. Then I take A, B, C, and D. Recalculate the p-value. Again, it will not be the same p-value because it depends on various. So again, you will have different set of p-values. Again, find out which is the highest p-value, which is greater than 0.05, eliminate that. So you will go on the process of elimination. So later maybe you will come B, C, D, or you will have then C, D, and then maybe only C. I'm just giving an example. That's I'm throwing an example here. So that means this D feature has the highest impact on the dependent variable. Similarly, in this case, we are trying to find out between the R&D expense, admin expense, and marketing expense, which has got the highest impact. So that as a strategist, I as the CEO of a company can say that, okay, I need to focus more on the R&D to increase my profit. Does it make sense, ma'am, who has asked this question? Have you understood?
Yes, sir, if the p-value gets less than 0.05, so whatever be it for 2 variables or 3 variables, we stop there, right?
Yes, typically, yes, you will have, you will have one with the lowest p-value, right? Even if the p-value is 0.05, 0.02, 0.01, you will have the one with the lowest p-value. You pick up that, which is the highest significance.
Okay, sir.
Because you want to reduce the error rate, right? So, yeah. Okay, so is this clear? I mean, this is very important, and good, at least you know what is the p-value. This I wanted to just make sure that you had covered that as part of your mathematical foundation. And I always tell my students or my faculties, please spend some time on statistics. If you want to take machine learning as a subject with your students or as part of your professional, as a PhD or whatever you want to do, please have your statistics foundations clear and strong. If you're not able to do that, then it becomes a bit difficult. Understanding this p-value, understanding coefficient of variance, understanding standard deviation, understanding variance, understanding all these terms are very, very important. What is outlier? What is interquartile range? So many of these colleges where I'm interacting, I always propose to them when I'm doing workshops. For example, I don't know whether you've heard of Symbiosis Institute in Pune. So they were one of the first colleges who said, okay, they'll first do statistics. They will have a workshop on statistics with us. Then they will do machine learning. So I think you should always remember one thing. If you want to teach machine learning to your students, unfortunately, statistics is not there as part of the curriculum, but you have to make sure that you ask your students to get this foundation clear. Okay. So now have you understood the regression part, the linear regression, where we talked about univariate regression, multivariate regression, and we also talked about backward elimination, how to find out the way to basically to find out which variable has the highest impact on the dependent variable, in which this case is the profit. Any questions on regression before I go to classification? Any questions?
Sir, can I add one point here?
Please do. Go ahead.
Yeah. Sir, you said the variable which has the least p-value would be ultimately selected.
Correct.
Apart from looking at this least p-value, we should also simultaneously look at what is happening to R-square value. The model with number of independent variables, let's say 3 independent variables which have p-value less than 0.05, if that model has highest R-square value, normally all 3 are retained.
Okay. So, okay. But then you ask, okay. So basically what happens, yes. So there is something called an alternate R-square, which is used for multiple regression model, where you basically use the number of features. But typically I have seen that, again, if you're asked, okay, now you have a model efficiency, you're right. If you have a model efficiency, and if I see that a particular, but then you have to take a call as to whether you should retain the, so what is your experience? What is your feeling? How do you take care of that?
Now, suppose we retain, let's say after all three independent variables have p-value less than 0.05, and therefore all 3 are significant contributors to dependent variable.
Okay.
Whether to retain all 3 or eliminate some would depend on whether your R-square value would be highest with all 3 or highest with 2 or highest with only 1. So we also look at the model efficiency in terms of R-square.
Model efficiency certainly you use by R-square, but here the purpose is, see, the purpose here is different, right? The purpose here we are trying to find out which has got, see, all the 3 may be significant. So it is basically for me to strategize how do I want to focus on my R&D expense or whichever the 3 variables to have basically to see how I can maximize or minimize my profit in this case. Okay. But the model efficiency will tell you whether with this set of data, this algorithm that we are used is suitable or not. the algorithm which I'm using, see, tomorrow, I mean, if this algorithm doesn't give me a high R square, okay, that means I'll have to relook at it, right? So you have to look at one R square is more formed to decide whether that model is appropriate for this set of data. And what I'm talking about, this backward elimination is to identify which variable has impact so that I can take some decision on, not from a model efficiency perspective, from a strategy perspective, what should I do?
Yeah, okay, fine. That's, yeah. If you are not looking at the model efficiency, but looking at the variable which has highest contribution to the dependent variable.
Contributor to the independent variable. That is right. That is right. But that's a good point. I mean, obviously, if there are three variables which are having less than 0.05, three are equally important. Okay. But your model efficiency, again, will, depending on those formula, yes, you can always calculate and see what is the model efficiency. But that model efficiency you will typically do with your full set of data, not just the elimination of three variables, right?
Yeah,
you will,
whatever
with 50 features you have, you will find out whether the model is apt for the complete 50 features of data and not those three features, because that is just an impact on your dependent variable.
Yeah, correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Hello.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Sir, I'm Ramakrishnan, sir.
Yes, Ramakrishnan. Yeah, please go ahead.
Sir, actually, we are doing the linear regression model. It's really good. But I think indirectly...
Sir, one small intervention. Your voice is very feeble.
Sir, am I audible now?
Yeah, you're audible. At least I can hear, sir. No problem. Please go ahead. Please,
Yes, sir. So the thing is, I think regression model is connected with the correlation coefficient between the variables. Indirectly, I think in this particular Python programming, it is calculated, sir, the correlation coefficients.
So one of the things which generally you have to do, there is something called an EDA, exploratory data analysis. So when you actually start doing your coding, right, you have to do an EDA where you calculate. There are some ways where you can calculate the covariance or the correlation matrix, where it says that whether the two variables are dependent on each other or they're independent of each other. So those are the things which you anyway have to do as part of your correlation. And there are features like heat maps. I don't know whether you've heard of heat maps. And there are some libraries called Seaborn, which helps you to create an heat map where it tells you that for the different features, what is the correlation between the various features. Okay, so that way also you can know how your data is moving, whether these two data are independent of each other, they're dependent on each other, or they're not all. There is either it could be in one direction, which is greater than 0, or it could be in negative direction where the correlation coefficient is less than 1, less than 0, or if it is 0 means it is both are not dependent on each other. So you have a correlation coefficient you can calculate.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so there are various.
Seaborn, sir, the library.
Seaborn, SEABORNE, Seaborn. And the graph which you get is called the heat map, HEATMAP, heat map. Okay, there are various graphs. Yeah. Anything else? Anybody has any questions? It's good. We are interacting. Please ask. I'll be happy to answer. So can we go ahead with classification? All of us, can we go ahead with classification? Okay, so let us go ahead with classification. So I will share you this PPT, don't worry. Okay, so you will have this PPT with you. I will send it to sir tomorrow morning. Okay, now what is classification? Now, as I said, the dependent variable will be a labeled fixed set of values, right? Yeah, somebody had a question, sorry. Somebody had a question. If somebody is not speaking, can you go on mute?
No, I think they are putting it on the chat box apart from PPTs.
Oh,
please share the script also. That is what they are putting in the chat box.
Okay. Let me put. Yes. Poonam, you will get everything. Don't worry. I will share the script. I will share the data set, and I will share the PPT also. You'll get everything. Don't worry. So you guys can practice at your own convenience. Okay, so let's go back to
Sir,
classification.
I have one question.
Please, please
In
go ahead.
multiple linear regression, you
Yes, sir.
identified which one is a more impact on the
Hmm.
dependent variable. So then it is
Correct.
multiple is converted into linear regression. No? You are choosing only single variable, which is more impact.
Yeah, that is just this the what you're okay. This is just to basically find out the one which is having the highest impact. That's it.
Okay, that's
There
it.
is
After
something called principal component analysis (PCA), where
Okay.
you do a feature extraction where out of the 7 variables you eliminate the variables and see the one which is having the highest covariance. Okay, that is called a feature. It is called a feature extraction
Feature
method, and
selection.
this is called feature elimination.
Okay, sir. I
What this?
understand up to that. You selected one.
Yeah.
No? After that, what is
Yeah,
the
yeah.
next step?
No, that is just for you to strategize as to what as a CEO what you need to do. Which is the particular feature you need to focus on. That's the only thing.
My question is,
It's
in the
more
case
for
of
yeah.
in
Yeah.
the case of
Please.
linear regression,
Mhm.
you draw a line, okay, using the
Hmm.
dependent variable and independent variable.
Mhm.
Here, more dependent variables are there. One dependent variable, more independent variables are there. No? Multiple linear regression.
Correct. So you basically use the R-square method to find the efficiency. You don't use the because in linear regression will not work, right? So you will use the R-square method to find out the efficiency.
That's okay. Prediction part not completed, na? Multilinear regression. Like,
So
drawing the
multilinear
line.
prediction. So multilinear prediction, you did a Y predict, right?
Okay.
You use the same concept. You fed all the independent variables. You fed the dependent variable, train the model, right? Then what you did a Y pred, and then in the Y pred you fed the X test. X test means all the independent variables, and then you're comparing Y pred with Y actuals.
No, that's okay.
Hmm.
You completed up to which variable is the highest impact on the dependent variable.
These are two different things. So one is the efficiency of the model, which I didn't continue because I had already shown it as part of the simple linear regression model.
That's only my question. So you up to that you stopped. That I am thinking.
Correct. I don't want to stop because the process is the same, because you will still calculate the R-square you'll follow. But I wanted to introduce this concept of backward elimination because that is very important. And since you're already covered p-value as part of a mathematical foundation course, I thought let me just cover that. And this is very important. That is the only thing. Otherwise, I could have covered, I would have more time than I could have actually run the entire script. In fact, I would have also run this. In fact, I'll give you the script, you run it and see.
Yeah. Just we have to change that equation. That's only. We have to include more variables.
That's it.
Okay, sir. Continue.
Okay, thank you. So coming to the classification, right? Typically, as I said, you will have the dependent variable which has got a fixed set of values. Now, if you see here, you have got, this is a standard vertebrate data set. This is any coaching that you do, they'll always start with this data set. So you have name, body temperature, skin cover, aquatic, gives birth or not, has legs, so on. All these parameters, features will decide whether it's a mammal, reptile, fish, or so on. So these are the discrete set of variables or the class labels, which is why this is called the dependent variable. Okay. What I'm going to cover today is there are three important. One is the logistic regression. Second is decision tree. And third is the random forest. There are various others like the support vector matrix, Naive Bayes theorem. There are so many of algorithms which are available today for classification. But for today's session, I will cover this three. Now in logistic regression, let me again go back to my script. I close this. I open this. I go back, regression, classification, right? In the classification, I've got logistic regression. I say select folder. Okay. I open logistic regression.py. And what is my data set? I open my data set is this one. This we have already covered. I have got user ID, gender, age, estimated salary, and purchase yes or no. Okay, so this is a user who logs into the portal, automotive car portal. He enters his profile details and then he selects or ticks marks whether he's going to buy a brand of car or not, right? So I collect all this data and I give it to a data scientist and who will be able to predict a model which will give me close to the actual data, right? So in this case, your purchase yes or no is going to purchase a car or not is going to be my dependent variable. User ID has no meaning, right? It's just a login ID. So it is going to be, it has no meaning or it has no impact on the analysis part. So we can omit that when I'm deciding which is the independent variable. The client also says that I don't care for the gender. I don't care for the sex. Okay. What I am important to know is the age and the estimated salary. So for this particular exercise that I'm going to do, I will take my independent variable as age and salary, and purchase yes or no is going to be my dependent variable. Okay. So I will open this logistic regression. Again, the steps are the same. Data pre-processing, train the model, evaluate the model. That is going to be your steps. So I will import the libraries. Okay. Then I will import the data set. Okay. So I'm only going to take age and salary as my independent variable and salary as my. So if I see X here, my X is what? Age and salary, and my Y is 0 and 1. Where is going to 0 means is not going to buy the car. 1 is going to buy the car. Okay. Now with this set of data, I'm assuming there is no missing data, so that is okay. What about data categorization? Do you need to do data categorization? Do you need to do the data categorization?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. For gender.
Yes.
Yes. So ideally, you would have done data categorization for gender, but since I'm not going to use gender as part of my independent variable, I can omit it. Right? Because I'm not doing analysis based on the gender. I'm doing analysis only between age and salary. So I can omit the data categorization. Is that clear? Why I'm omitting it? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. What about, okay, splitting, so you have to do. So I will split the data. Okay. After splitting the data, so I've got 25% test data and 75% training data. So if I go to a variable explorer, so out of 400 records, there are 100 records of training data. Okay, 100 of test data and 300 of training record, because 75% is training and 100% and 25% is test. Okay. Do I need to do feature scaling? Do I need to do feature scaling? Anybody?
One response is there, yes.
Sir, I think in some of the cases it is basically required, because some of the cases the values are too high, and so the scaling is required
So,
in this case.
yeah, you have age and salary. We have already done it so many times, right? So you have to do feature scaling in this case, right? Because again, age and salary are in different scales, right? Now, as against in linear regression, where the feature scaling was part of the algorithm, in this case, you have to explicitly do feature scaling. So now, if I do xtrain here, and I do xtest, I got 300 and 100 records, right? Now, I'm going to use standard scaler, and I'm going to do this for xtest and xtrain. If I do X train again, see the values has come down somewhere between -1, 1, 0.53, 2.33, so on. Similarly, if I do X test, is again very small values, right? So I have done the feature scaling, and now I have completed my data pre-processing steps. So next step I will do is, again, same equation. I'm going to use logistic regression class. I'm going to feed the input X train and Y train, and I will train the model. Okay, so model is trained. And now I calculate the Y predict. What will be the possible values of Y predict?
Zero or one.
Yeah, so what possible values of Y predict also will be 0 and 1, right? And then again, I will compare Y predict with Y test. Simple as that, right? Now, so one is I can do a Y test and Y predict. So I then take Y predict, Y test, and do a sort of a manual sort of a thing. Okay, this is Y test and this is actual data, this is the predicted data. And I see where there is a difference, right? Okay. Other way of doing it is using matplotlib. So what I can do, I can select this. Okay. Matplotlib, if you see here, this is a line which is called the prediction boundary. It's a linear boundary. That's why it's called logistic regression. It's a linear. And this line, what you see on the left-hand side is the predicted value of 0. And what you see on the green is the predicted value of 1. Okay. And what you see, these red dots means my actual value and my predicted value is same. And if you see the green dots in green, the actual value and predicted value is same. Okay. Now, before I explain into more details, I will explain you a concept of confusion matrix. Just as we had R square to find out the efficiency of a regression model, we use confusion matrix to measure the efficiency of a classification model. Okay. Now I will explain you how it is. If you see the screen on the top in the columns here or this horizontal, you have Y predict. Y predict is your predicted value coming out of the model. And Y actuals is the actual value which is coming out of the model, which is the again dependent variable, right? The values could be either 0 and 1. So he's not going to buy the car, going to buy the car, not going to buy the car, buy the car. Okay. Assuming that I've got 100 samples of test data, I have seen there are 35 cases where the predicted value is 0, actual value is 0. That means I predicted that he is going to not buy the car and actually he has not bought the car. So that is perfect. My model is working fine. There are 50 cases where my predicted value is 1. That means he's going to buy the car and actually also is going to buy the car. So the model is perfectly working as per my requirement. Now look at the remaining 15. There are 5 cases where I have predicted that he's going to buy the car, but he has not bought the car. There is some error. And there are 10 cases where he is predicted is not going to buy the car, but actually has bought the car. Okay. Now, let me translate this into a more familiar, which I generally explain is using a cancer patient. I'm saying 0 means the person does not have cancer. That means cancer is benign. And 1 means he is having cancer that is more malignant, right? Okay. Now, there are 35 cases where the person has predicted that he's not going to have a cancer and he's actually also he does not have cancer. There are 50 cases where he's going to have cancer and actually also he has cancer. Okay. Now this, what is called, it is true positive because he has predicted he has cancer and actually also he has got cancer. This is true negative. He has predicted he does not have cancer and actually also does not have cancer. Look at this. So this is called true positive. This is called true negative. Look at this. There are 5 cases where he has got cancer predicted, but actually he does not have cancer. There's an error, but is less severe error because he is not cancer, but the prediction that he did not have cancer. Prediction that he has cancer, but actually he did not have cancer, right? This is called a type 1 error. This is called a type 1 error. Look at this 10. He has predicted that he is not going to have cancer, but actually he has got cancer. This is the most severe issue. If my model is predicting that he's not going to have cancer, but actually he has cancer, there's something wrong. It's a big thing. It's a big error as far as the model is concerned. Okay. So this is called type 2 error, or also it is called the false negative. Okay. So when you calculate the efficiency of the model, we'd use one is the accuracy rate. So in this case, the accuracy is, of course, 85% and the error rate is 15%. So your main aim is to maximize the accuracy rate and minimize the error rate. Have you understood this concept of confusion matrix? Is it clear to all of you? Any questions?
Yes, sir.
Please go ahead. Yes, yes, Anshika, please go ahead. Yeah,
So
Anshika,
this
right?
way type, yes, sir.
Yeah, tell me.
So this way type 2 error will be more dangerous, right?
Type 2 error is more dangerous, correct. That's why it is red here, if you see here. Because you cannot have a situation where he has predicted he does not have cancer, but actually he has cancer.
Yes.
So you will have to eliminate type 2 error for sure, plus also type 1 error. Okay.
So both the errors are relative. So if we minimize one, does it mean that we'll have to increase the other error? Like they are relative to each other, no?
No, they are how they are related to each other. They are different. They are different sample records, right? You have got 100 records totally, and you have found there are 5 records where you have type 1 error, and there are 10 records which are having type 2 error. That means your model doesn't work well. This specific, if your model is going to give this error, where your accuracy is less than 90% or 95%, that means there's something wrong. So you need to try some other models. Okay, you need to try it out a model which will give you a higher accuracy. So typically what happens in industry, you will have the same set of data which I will show. You will run various types of models. You will run logistic regression. You will probably run SVM. You will run this one. You will run decision trees. You will run random forest and see the one which is giving you the highest model, highest efficiency, confusion rate, or highest accuracy.
Okay.
Any other question? Am I clear? Anybody has any other question, please?
Sir, is there any way to know beforehand that which model is going to be the best for my data set?
It comes to experience, sir.
Okay.
It doesn't. I cannot say whether this data decision tree will work out well. That is why you need to try out various options, sir. And typically, I have seen that. Have you heard of underfitting and overfitting? Anybody?
Yes, sir.
What is underfitting? Please go ahead. Don't worry. If it is wrong, also it's fine. We're all learning. What is your understanding of underfitting and what is your understanding of overfitting? Anybody?
So as far as I remember, underfitting, I think it's when the predicted values are lesser than the actual value. Or maybe we use a lesser number of independent variables.
No, not the case. Anybody else? So when you have underfitting, that means your training errors are high. That means when you did the prediction for the training of the model, when you train the model, the predicted value and the actual value for the training data was very high. Similarly, for the test data, the errors were very high. In the case of just fitting, means you have a case where the model is perfectly good, like just as we saw the linear regression, where you got an efficiency or an R-square score of 97%, right? And overfitting, what happens? Your training data, it has worked well with the training data, but it doesn't work well with your test data. So the errors with training is minimum, but your errors with test data is high. Okay, so you have to look at ways where you can eliminate overfitting or underfitting, overfitting and underfitting. Okay, so there are various ways to do that. I think, so generally when I go to decision trees, I will typically find an overfitting errors. And that is why to take care of this overfitting issue, it is always recommended to use random forest. I'll come to that, what is decision in random forest, but just wanted to let you get an insight of what is underfitting and what is overfitting. Okay. So is this clear about the confusion matrix? Have you guys understood what is confusion matrix? Okay. Having said that, now let us go to this. In my confusion matrix, I will give y-test and y-pred as my parameters. So what is my accuracy here? What is my accuracy?
%89%.
Perfect. So my accuracy is 89%, right? Now, if I want to represent this in a graph, that is what I'm showing you. So you will see that there are red points in red, green points in green. There are some red points in green and some green points in red. So these are the type 1, type 2 errors. Similarly, if I were to do this on my test set, this is how it will look. And if you count, so there are again some greens in red and reds in green. So if you count all these, right, will be total 11. If you saw, we saw that 11, right? 89%. That means there were 11 type 1 and type 2 errors. So these are the 11 ones. There are green in red and red in green. So this is how you can also, through using matplotlib, of course, confusion matrix, to find out how your model is working graphically. So any questions on logistic regression? Okay. Let us do one small quiz. Okay. Till now, whatever we have understood, let us have a quick glance. Can somebody tell me which are the, of course, I have not covered this, but let me see based on your experience. The first question, which are the examples of machine learning applications?
Participants, please respond.
So chatbot.
Sir, prediction model.
So chatbot.
Fraud
Chatbot. Okay.
Fraud detection.
Prediction model.
So prediction model is not an application, it's a model, right? To predict the future data, maybe based on past, maybe a time series analysis and all that. Fraud detection is an application. Okay, it's today in banks, you have machine learning algorithms which can identify whether a transaction is a fraud transaction or it is a normal transaction. Google search works on the principle of machine learning. When you do a Google search, there is a machine learning algorithm which automatically gives you a set of intelligent searches based on your past searches. Right? Chatbot, what you see online when somebody asks you a question, can I help you? Right? That is again based on machine learning algorithms. Okay. What are the various machine learning types?
Supervised learning and reinforcement.
Supervised and reinforcement.
A and D.
This was the puzzle which everybody makes mistakes. Supervised learning, yes. Learning association, why it is not? Learning association is part of unsupervised model. If you see supervised model, we talked about clustering, unsupervised model, we talked about clustering and learning association, right? Which I talked to you about the recommender systems in the beginning of the session, first session, right? So it is supervised learning, learning association, and reinforcement learning. Question number 3, in Python, which of the following library can best help manage data sets?
Pandas.
Yeah, this is very simple. Let me see who can, and I think I must have explained this so many times, you should be able to sequence the following data pre-processing steps from the first step to the last step.
So first is importing data set.
Okay, good.
Then
Categorizing data.
then we go for the missing data. Categorizing data. Features filling, then splitting data into training and test set.
Anybody else? You're close, but I think you are still miss out something.
Sir, categorical data will be the last step. Before that, the splitting data will be there.
Anybody else? So you had the import data set, obviously. Then you had missing data. See, you cannot do categorization without you incorporate all the missing data. Please be understand. How do you categorize if there's a missing value, for example, right? Categorization data, yes. Splitting data is next, and then feature scaling. If you remember, we did feature scaling on XTrain and XTest. Remember?
Yes.
That means XTrain and XTest only comes into picture when you have split the data. So splitting has to be first, and then you do the feature scaling. Question number 5. Which of the following is not a recommended strategy to take care of missing data? Yes, please read the question correctly, carefully. Which of the following is not a recommended strategy to take care of missing data?
So D.
D for Delhi?
Yes.
Okay, anybody else?
Yes, sir. D.
A.
5B.
Sorry, who
Sir,
said B?
C. Delete the observations that contains the missing data.
Correct. See, if you remember, when I did the missing data, I showed you the script, right? Where did I use the mean to fill up the missing data? And then I could have used the median, I could have used mode also. See, if I delete my data, I will have less amount of data for doing the training. So deleting the data should be the last option and should be done in concurrence with the client, because the ownership of the data lies with the client and not us as a data scientist. Okay, so deleting the observation is something which is not a recommended strategy. Where are dummy variables used?
Data categorization.
And which function is used to do the data categorization? To do this dummy variables? Remember? We talked about label encoder, one hot encoder, remember? So we had label encoder which created the serial numbers and the one hot encoder which created the dummy variables. Okay. Which of the following are the Python libraries?
All of the above.
Sorry, ma'am, can you be a bit loud?
Sir, it is not visible clearly. Make it zoom, sir. Little bit zoom.
Should I zoom it? Okay, no worries. 1 minute.
Not clear.
No problem. Can you see it?
Yes,
Can you
sir,
see?
yes. Good. It's good now.
So which are the Python libraries? Ma'am, you were saying something?
All are.
All of the above.
Correct. All of the above. So you have NumPy. sklearn is scikit-learn, which you use that. It's used in multiple places. Matplotlib, we talked about pandas. Which class is used for categorizing data?
B.
Label encoder. This.
Achha, please note that it is multiple choice. It can't be single. Need not be a single answer. Okay. So which class is used? Label encoder and one hot encoder. Both, right? Label encoder and one hot encoder. Which is the recommended, sorry, what is the recommended ratio of splitting training data set and test data set? I think this we have done so many times.
70 to 30.
70-30 is one option. Any other option?
80-20, 90-10.
90-10 is also the option possible. But yes, 70-30, 80-20 is the recommended options, right?
Correct.
Which are the various algorithms used in supervised learning?
Good question. Yes.
They're very interesting. I will tell you something about NLP, but what is your answer?
Associated learning.
Associated learning is unsupervised.
Sir, the linear regression and logistic regression comes under supervised.
Correct. So linear and logistic. Logistic comes under classification. Linear regression comes under regression, right? NLP. I will talk to you about NLP, why it is also a valid answer. Okay. Now, for example, I go to a restaurant. I have my food. And at the end of having my food, most of the big restaurants, they will take a feedback from you to find out whether the food is good. Can I unmute? Can you please unmute somebody else? Somebody is speaking. Can others go on mute, please? It's creating a lot of disturbance.
Deena Babu, Dr. Deena Babu, please unmute. Dr. Deena Babu.
Sir, as a host, can you mute, sir? Sir, as a host, can you mute, sir?
Yes, sir. No?
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you. So when we go to a restaurant and we take, after we having your food, we take a feedback. The restaurant takes a feedback. That feedback data is actually fed into a machine learning algorithm. And there are natural language, NLP stands for natural language processing. There are NLP libraries which can identify a particular word which says good about a product or which says bad about the food, right? So using NLP libraries, so you can have something called a classification data set, where based on the data you have entered in the feedback form, okay, you can say whether it is a good feedback or bad feedback. That data goes into a machine learning algorithm, which has already been trained on that set of data earlier. And it will tell you that this particular comment that this person is given is a favorable feedback or an unfavorable feedback. So that is why NLP is also used very heavily for classification data, right? That's why the answer is A, B, and D. Let me see who can answer this. What is true about classification?
Level data confusion matrix.
Okay, very good. Anybody else? So you have labeled data, correct? Because you
So
have
D
a
also.
yeah, why D? Good point. Why D? Where did you hear the word prediction boundary?
Sir, I heard it in categorical data analysis once.
So if you remember when we talked about the logistic regression, that when you saw the graph, right, there was a straight prediction boundary line
Yes,
which was dividing the predicted 0 value and predicted 1 value, the red and green. That becomes the prediction boundary. So that is used in logistic regression. So it is B, C, and D. Okay. Okay, I think that covers most of the thing. Let's go back to the decision trees. Now, what is a decision tree? Typically, is in any decision tree, I will have a root node, a normal node, a parent, you can call it a parent or a child, you can have sub nodes, and you have a leaf. Leaf is the lowest level of the node. And in a classification data, the leaf is basically the value of the dependent variable. Either it's is going to buy a car, not going to buy a car, or is going to have cancer, or is whatever. The output value of a discrete variable. Now, if I have to show you this diagram, let's say I have got two features, x1 and x2. Okay. And these are the values. Green means 1, red is 0. Okay. And okay. Now, if you have this sort of a data, now how will machine learning algorithm create a decision trees? So this is a bit statistical, but just to give you an idea. Now there is something called an ID3 algorithm, which is used today. In that, what happens, you have something called an information gain or entropy. If you see the chemical term of entropy means where entropy means it is less homogeneous, more heterogeneous. And when I say information gain is that this ID3 algorithm using some statistical way, it tries to calculate based on the attribute, whether x1 and x2, one, which is giving the highest information gain, or which is the one where you can split based on the basically splitting the plus the greens and the reds, the 0 and 1. So if you try to find the attribute which is having the highest information gain and then do the split based on that particular attribute. So when you have the high information gain, that means entropy is low. So you basically try to split from your parent based on the attribute which is having the highest information gain. And that is basically we use in decision tree classification. Now, if you go to decision tree regression, if you do some reading, there is something called standard deviation reduction. So the split happens in decision tree regression based on standard deviation reduction. In the case of decision tree classification, the split happens on an attribute based on having the highest information gain. Have you understood the concept, what I told you? Anybody has any questions on this? Okay. So if you see how the split has happened, this is how the split has happened based on this data. It has gone from this, then it has gone a further split, and finally what you see in the leaves is your either he buys a car or whatever he doesn't buy a car. I'm just giving an example, either 0 or 1. Okay. So this is how it internally does the decision tree classification based on the information gain. Okay. Now what I will do is I will use the same data set which was used for logistic regression, and I will run it for, I will use a decision tree algorithm to run that data set. So what I will do, I'll go back. I will keep the data set same. So I will change here. I will go back. I will select decision tree classification. I say select folder. And within here, I will see a file called decision tree classification.py. You see my data is the same. Now with decision tree algorithm, I will try to find out what is my accuracy. Okay. So I will use the same concept. I will go to importing libraries. This is all which was done earlier. I took age and salary as my independent variable and my purchase yes or no as dependent variable. I do the data split. I do the data scaling, feature scaling. Now I've used something called decision tree classifier and use something called criteria equal to entropy. If I use this, this will actually do the data split. Okay. Now if I do the Y prediction and I do the confusion matrix where I take Y test and Y prediction, you see here with decision tree matrix model, my accuracy is 91%. When I use the logistic regression model, my accuracy was 89%. Right? So this way, I calculate the regression, the confusion matrix or the efficiency of the various models with the same data set. And similarly, I can do a graph which will show me this is a bit, I'm sorry. This is a bit confusion, not confusion. This doesn't give you a linear prediction boundary as in the case of logistic regression. If I do this, this is how it looks. So you will have all the reds, which is demarcating the predicted 0 and 1 and the actual dots. Okay. Similarly, if I do for the test set, this is how it will look. Okay. So this is how a decision tree works. And for this specific set of data, you had the efficiency or the accuracy higher than the logistic regression. Any questions on the decision trees or any thoughts based on your knowledge which you have? Can you please share about decision trees model? Am I audible? I know it's close to lunchtime, but I think let's keep the same energy for next 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah, you are audible, sir. You are audible, very clearly audible.
Okay, great. Okay. So having covered decision tree, as I said, one of the issues in decision tree is overfitting. So to eliminate overfitting, they have come out with an algorithm called the ensemble method, or it is also called the random forest. And what the random forest works is like this.
Sir, good morning, sir.
Sorry, somebody was saying something, then your voice is very low, sir. If you have a question. Okay. Now, how does a random forest or an ensemble work? It is still using the concept of decision trees, but the way it works is like this. I have a data set of say 1,000 records. I will first decide how many decision trees I will take. Now, this again comes to experience. Either I can use 3 decision trees, 4 decision trees, 5 decision trees, and see where they and how many decision trees will help me to come out with an accurate model. Assuming I take 3 decision trees, I create 3 subset of records, say 300 records, 400 records, and another 300 records, 1000 records. I feed this into one decision tree model. I run it with the decision tree classification model. I feed this into another set of decision tree model. I run this with the decision tree model separately. What I done earlier, I will run it again with 3 different data sets. And then if there is a new input independent variable, this will predict some value of output, whether it will be 0 or 1. This also for the same independent variable, it will predict 0 and 1. This also will predict 0 and 1. So what it will do, it will aggregate the results and take the data with the highest vote. So if there are 2 of them, which is showing 1 and 1 is showing 0, it will aggregate and predict finally as 1 because 1 has the highest vote. If 0 has got the highest vote, then it will take the value of 0. So in a random forest, what happens, you have parameterized the number of decision trees and you find out, if I want to show it in a very nice form, pick up random k data points from the training set, build a decision tree associated with these k data points, choose the number of trees you want to build and repeat 1 and 2. Okay. For a new data point, make each one of the entries predict the category to which the data point belongs. Category means either 0 and 1, and assign the new data point to the category that wins the majority vote. So wherever you get the predicted value for that specific input value, among the decision trees, you pick that predicted value or the output which is having the highest vote. Have you understood this concept of decision random forest? Any questions on this?
Sir, how the data set is divided? Is it a horizontal division? It's not clear to me.
You have a random subset. You can do it any. You can use random state out there. I'll come to that. You use a random state there. So it uses a random subset. Yeah, that algorithm takes care of that. Okay. Now, if I want to execute here, I go back to my script. Now you have understood the concept. I will close this. I'll keep the data set same because I'm using the same data set. I will select this. I will go back. I'll go back. I will select random forest. Select folder. I will select random forest.py. Now what I do is I again run the data set. Same thing. I use the same. This is also same because I do the feature scaling. Now here, see what I'm doing. Here the random state 0, right? So the algorithm takes care how do you want to split the data set into. And here you see the number of estimators. These number of estimators is the number of decision trees which you have to input as a parameter. So you try with 5 decision trees, you try with 7 decision trees, 10 and so on, and then try to find out through confusion matrix which is giving you the highest accuracy rate. Okay. So for 10 decision trees, I run this. I do the prediction again. I calculate the confusion matrix and now I calculate the CM. So again, it comes to 91% here, same as decision trees. So typically you will vary the number of decision trees and try to find out the confusion matrix, okay, and suggest the one which is having the highest of. So you'll have a threshold after which even if you increase the number of decision trees, the accuracy is not going to increase. So you need to have a threshold where you can say this is the one, this is the number of decision trees I need to select, which will give you the most optimized accuracy in my classification model. So this basically is called the random forest, or it's also called the ensemble method. Okay, so what we have seen is we have used the same data set. We ran the logistic regression, found the accuracy. We ran the decision tree, ran the accuracy. We ran the random forest because that is more recommended because of the overfitting issue in decision trees. And we find out we vary the number of decision trees where you have the number of estimators, which is the parameters, which is the variable, which you can change and find and play around with that. And find out the optimum number of decision trees, after which your accuracy is not going to increase anyways. I mean, these are very interesting algorithms, which are, if you really want to do deep search, you can do that. But yes, I mean, there are a lot of experts who have really worked on this. But have you now understood the concept of regression and classification as part of supervised model? Do we have any questions before I wind up? Have you guys enjoyed the session or not?
Yes.
Yes, sir, pretty much.
Yeah, important is when you go out of this session, I want you guys to be knowledgeable with something so that you can use it for in whatever way in your life or in your teaching career or so on. So I'll be sharing this PPT to sir, and he will share the PPT, the data set, and the scripts by tomorrow morning to sir. Sir can share it with all of you. I think tomorrow is your last day of this session. You'll be surely getting it before you go, before you finish off by tomorrow evening. And if you guys need any help as a part of your faculty for your students, please reach out to me on my email ID. Sir can share you the email ID. Sir can also share my number. You can take the number from sir, and then you can call me, and you can take a reference that you had attended some of my sessions, and I'll be happy to help your students. Today, I have got association with around 62 colleges all across India, including the NITs, and all my faculties, including me, are working professionals. So today I've taken off. Actually, I told sir that 11 to 11:30 is my meeting, so I was not able to attend. So I had actually a official meeting between 11 and 11:30. That's why I requested sir to please start half an hour early. I'm very thankful to all of you that you are a bit flexible to start half an hour early and attend this session. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
and sir, if you want to conclude, then we can.
Participants, if you have any questions, please ask before winding the session.
So please share the email ID.
Yeah, sure.
Sir will share the email ID and phone number with all of you.
Yeah, I will share it. Before that, if you have any doubts, you can ask. I think this is a lunchtime, sir. So people are in hurry.
I'm also equally hungry, sir. So the
Really,
challenge time. But I hope because I think it's always good to do hands-on so that people can link the theory to the practical. Otherwise, just doing theory becomes a bit boring, sir.
Both are required. So really wonderful session, sir. We enjoyed your theory and the practical sessions. And most of the participants are actively participated, and they cleared so many doubts. And thanks to our Professor Mallikarjunappa sir, his special interest on this workshop, and I think he is joining daily. Sir,
Thank you, sir.
A commerce professor, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the opportunity, sir. Thank you for the opportunity, sir.
Thank you.